The Craig Ferguson Pants on Fire tour is on sale now. It's a new show, it's new material, but I'm afraid it's still only me, Craig Ferguson, on my own, standing on a stage, telling comedy words. Come and see me. Buy tickets. Bring your loved ones. Or don't come and see me. Don't buy tickets and don't bring your loved ones. I'm not your dad. You come or don't come, but you should at least know it's happening. And it is. The tour kicks off late September and goes through the end of the year and beyond. Tickets are available at thecraigfergusonshow.com/tour. They're available at thecraigfergusonshow.com/tour or at your local outlet in your region. My name is Craig Ferguson. The name of this podcast is Joy. I talk to interesting people about what brings them happiness. My favourite cast member on Saturday Night Live right now is Heidi Gardner. She's professional, she's very, very funny, and she's very, very good at what she does. And she's here. Let's meet her. Enjoy. Here's the thing, Heidi, I want to tell you this right now, that I think Heidi is the nicest name for a girl. I've always thought that, and if ever I had had a daughter, I would have called her Heidi. And I wondered if you were raised in the Alps looking after sheep.
I wasn't, but I did have a good relationship with my grandpa, which I believe Heidi also had. So,
oh, that's right. I think did you read the book Heidi when you were little?
Yeah, I think I've read different iterations of Heidi, but it always has to do with a grandpa, the Alps, some sheep. And I think there's a vampire in one of the episodes where Heidi meets Dracula. Yes, Heidi Meets Dracula is my favorite version of
I'm in London right now, and I just walked by Bram Stoker's house where he wrote Dracula, and now I'm a bit scared. It's why it's on my mind.
I would be excited.
Yeah, I'm excited and scared. It's a mixture of both. I'm excited. So, are you in New York City?
I am.
I think I can tell by your fashionable bag hanging on the thing behind you.
That might be the only thing in here that's screaming fashion.
Are you in production right now for SNL?
Yes, we have the 50th anniversary this weekend.
Oh, congratulations. And
Thank you.
I say, 50 years on television, you look great.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's amazing. Did you see the movie, the new movie about the Saturday Night Live movie?
No.
Okay.
And it's only because I'm saving it till I'm not currently taping SNL, because it's just a little too close to home right now.
It's funny. It seemed like over the years, I've run into a lot of people who have either, current or past cast members of SNL. And it is a kind of, you get to be part of a sort of elite. You're part of the elite now. Do you get is there a special roped off area of clubs of New York if you're an SNL?
If there is, I don't know about it, and it's my own fault. I'm from the Midwest.
Yes.
And I think we're humble to a fault. And I have been told by other cast members, and I believe this, in their life, and even former cast members, that they can walk into any restaurant in New York and get a table. And I just have never banked on that for 1 second in my life, or that there's a secret section. So I'm always making a reservation. I'm never assuming I'm going to get a special room.
I think that's the correct way to go about it, because that shows the correct approach to show business, which is you never know where your next shock of humility is coming from.
100%. Yeah.
But you're not even as old as Saturday Night Live. Did you grow up watching it? And who did you grow up watching? Who were the cast members? Because I assume you grew up watching it, did you?
Yes, for sure. And I remember my parents, and I'm not sure, obviously this is before YouTube and where you could rewatch most things, but I think that my parents had some of the early VHS, because they definitely showed me Eddie Murphy as James Brown, the Hot Tub Time Machine. That was the first sketch I ever saw. And then I would start watching it on Saturdays with them. And the first time I ever made my parents laugh was doing, or that I remember, is doing an impression of Dana Carvey doing an impression of Robin Leach. And so that was...
Lifestyles of the rich and famous. Wow,
Yeah.
that is... I remember that. What's the... So are you from a show business family where are your parents involved in stuff like that?
No, they're definitely characters for sure. And they're like my greatest source of inspiration. But my dad actually did do improv for comedy sports. And so when I was really little, I'd go and watch him perform.
I remember that comedy sports thing. Is that still a thing? Do people still do that?
I do think it is. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like competitive improv. Is that what it is?
Yeah. And like they would wear ref uniforms is what I really remember from it. Yeah.
But you're a Groundlings alum, though, right? So how did you get into that? How did you end up doing improv? Because that's an LA based, or LA and New York based, right?
Yeah. So I moved to LA when I was 21, and I moved out there to do hair and makeup. I knew I wanted to like work in pop culture in some way, and I was good at doing hair. So I moved out there and I was working at a salon for about 5 years and made friends with a woman named Rachel who was in the Groundlings. And she said, you should come to my improv show tonight. I'm performing. And I'd heard of the Groundlings for sure. I mean, I was obsessed with SNL and pop culture and everything. I went and saw the show and I was like, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen. I can't wait for my family to visit so I can bring them to see it. And she was like, yes, but also I was hoping that maybe it would inspire you to, take a class here. And I was like, what? And she was like, I think you'd be really good at this. And I was like, I'm not an actor. And she was like, yeah, but you leave me like 6-minute voicemails in character and they're funny.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So that was kind of how that started.
So but hair is because your hair is great. I didn't want to bring it up right away, but your hair is great. It looks like it's been done professionally. If you don't mind me saying.
It was done professionally this morning.
Yeah.
It looked like that.
But
Got it.
Because I did a movie once where I played a hairdresser. In order to do it properly, I learned how to cut hair a little bit. And I really liked it.
That makes me so happy to hear that, because my biggest grievance as a hairdresser is if you watch someone playing a hairdresser, they don't hold the scissors correctly. And so I love your commitment to the craft.
Yeah, but you didn't see the movie, did you? No, you didn't see the movie. But
Now I'm going to. If you told me you did that, that is the best selling point.
It was a movie called The Big Tease. Nobody saw this movie. And it was about a Scottish hairdresser that goes to Los Angeles to take part in the World Hairdressing competition.
Oh my God.
And hijinks ensue. But I learned how to cut hair a little bit, and I really liked it. And I thought, I kind of wish I'd done this instead of getting into show business. But by then it was too late.
Yeah. I mean, I always think it's a good thing to go back to. I really enjoyed it. And it was also a place where I was meeting so many people every day, different types of people.
Yeah.
But it also was a good source of inspiration.
And also gossip in Hollywood. I mean, it is the
100%.
absolute hive of all things. If you want to know anything, you would hear everything. And
I would.
And you still went into show business?
It's funny, when I told my clients, when I finally quit the salon, I never told them I had this like side, I don't even want to call it side hustle, because I was doing everything for free. Just this side obsession with sketch and improv. And when I told them, I'm leaving the salon, and they're like, oh, well, what salon are you going to? If it's close, I'll follow you. And I was like, no, I'm going to pursue comedy. And because I didn't consider myself an actor either. And they were like, are you funny? I was like, I think I am. And they're like, don't do this. Like, you moved out here. You did the reverse of what people typically do. You moved out here like to be a hairdresser, and you made it. Like, don't now do the cliche thing. Like, they very much told me not to do it.
I think the good thing about show business, though, is as a kind of as a place to work, and one of the good things about it is the fact that there are no really set paths, except maybe something like Saturday Night Live. If you're lucky enough to get into that, then that's kind of like you get the rubber stamp. It's like the Ivy League of comedians. How long have you been doing it? Like 6 years or something?
8 years.
8 years?
Yeah, I'm in my 8th season.
Do you still like enjoy it?
Yeah, I do. I love playing characters, so I can't really imagine a world where I'm going to get to do this to this degree again.
Right.
I will say the only thing that I've started to feel a little bit is just sketch fatigue or idea fatigue, in the way that at this point, after doing Groundlings and SNL for so long, I'm like, I've written a lot of sketches, and, you just get scared. And it does happen some weeks where I'm like, I do not have an idea for a sketch, a game, or a character. And then, luckily we have amazing writers at the show that will be like, but I have an idea for you. That's the only thing that has gotten a little tough.
How does the week get put together for Saturday Night Live? Do you start on a Tuesday or something? Is that right? Or
yeah, we do go in on Monday. It's just for a couple hours. You meet the host, you pitch them a joke sketch. It's just kind of an icebreaker. And then Tuesday is writing night. Wednesday, table read. Thursday, Friday are the rehearsals. And when we tape the pre-tape sketches. And then Saturday, rehearse all day, dress rehearsal, show, after party.
The after party is part of the day? Is you have to go to the after party?
You don't have to, but I think out of respect for the show and the party and the thing you just created that week, it's good to let off some steam with everyone. Occasionally, I've not gone, and then I regret it, because it's like you have so much adrenaline pumping through you that if you just go home and try to go to bed, it's not going to happen.
That's funny. I kind of, because now I used to always party after a show or do something after a show, and now I'm like, I can leave a theater. I'm out the theater before the audience and in my bed in a hotel half an hour later, lights out, socks on, pajamas, and sleeping. But I think that it's funny because adrenaline, I always thought as a performer, I thought you needed it. And now I think it's the enemy. I hate adrenaline on stage. I don't like to feel kind of nervous. Do you still get kind of charged before you work?
I get charged, but to tell you the truth, the charge is all adrenaline and anxiety and untruths. It's just, even if I'm going to perform, I'll perform at like a local theater or do a show at a college, and I'll suddenly, before I go out to this new crowd of people, think that they're going to hate me.
Yeah. I think that's normal.
Yeah. And it is. It's just adrenaline and anxiety, and and so I'm used to just like having that thought saying, this is how you think, but it's probably not true. And you're a people pleaser, so you're still going to go do this thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's funny. I remember working with an old comedian. It's not that long ago, actually. And I was working with an older comedian who you would know. And I was like pacing up and down backstage and all that stuff. And he was like sitting in a chair, and he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just kind of getting myself ready. He went, for what? Who's this for? What's all this posturing backstage is just going to make you speak too fast. And it kind of does. It's true. I stopped doing it. And I feel like in the past few years, I've gotten much better at the job because I just go. And if they hate me, well, that's fine. I'd be surprised though, because they know I'm there. So they could avoid me.
Yes. They didn't have to buy the ticket.
They didn't have to buy the ticket.
That will help, actually.
They know who you are. They've come to see you, and they've come to see you probably because they like you. I'm not saying there might not be a crazy loner in there somewhere who hates you, and that's why they're there. But I don't think there's that many of them. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Do you get? I mean, the way that your generation is now with performance, though, there's much more connection, I think, with the audience in digital form than my people of my generation, and even, I kind of separate myself from that a little bit. I mean, I have social media, but I don't do it. Someone else does it. And I occasionally will go on and look at it and go, and go away.
Mm.
Do you have all that? Do you have all the Instagram and the Twix and everything?
I have an Instagram, but I run my Instagram the same way. I even saying run my Instagram, I just do my Instagram the same way I did it before SNL, which was just like posting pictures and stories for my friends for the most part. And I think I did come around right before it was more of like a necessary thing to post so much content. I think if I hadn't gotten SNL, I would have needed that release 100% and would have done that more. But I am able to get a lot of stuff out on the show. And I just have never found my gear on a social platform in a way where I want to be that vulnerable, So.
Yeah, I think also what happens is SNL is famously produced, but I don't know if it's still on a day-to-day basis produced by Lorne Michaels, is it?
Yeah.
All right. Because Lorne is like one of the great comedy producers of all time. And I think that the thing that people suffer from on social media, on the phones and stuff like that, is they don't have a producer. They don't have someone saying, what would be better about this joke is if you didn't do this joke and maybe did a different joke that wouldn't make everybody mad or make you look like an asshole or something like that. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like the role of the producer is removed. The creative producer is removed from a lot of people's Instagram. And I think the people who are successful in social media are people who have a producer's instinct themselves. That they understand, I'll do this. And like, if you look at influencers, even like that, like the royal family of it, the Kardashians, they're all producers. They all think like producers. They all have a kind of. Do you have that? Do you think? Do you censor yourself or think about it, or do you let the show do it and relax into that? I mean, I assume you trust Lorne to give you the right advice.
Yeah, I do trust his advice. And at this point, I feel like, yes, I know how to self-edit. I know typically what the show's going to respond to or not respond to, even to just get it onto the show, like table read. What I do like is the freedom of once the new part is the live audience. So once I'm performing it live in front of the audience and on TV, I do like that feels like, I'm just like, belts are off and I'm just going for it. I love that. But because we've had rewrite tables and we've edited it so much up to that point, I'm like, oh, I have the time to be a little crazier, or to take my time because we've already cut it down. The only thing I will say is I totally agree with that point that you're making. But I was at a concert recently where the performer brought out another act, and what I was watching was certainly something that had not been rehearsed. The woman performing was just pretty loose in her dance and singing, and even the other dancers were like, they weren't sure where to stand or catch her. And I was like, oh my God, I would never be able to go up there and do, I can tell this, like someone went out and like marked this for maybe 2 minutes, but they were fine and the audience was fine and they still had confidence. And I was like, that's interesting because I don't trust that at all. And I could never do it. But it was nice to see someone just be experimental. It didn't really work for me, but I was like, that's cool to have that confidence because now I'm so like, produced.
Well, you make an interesting point because when I work, I don't have a rehearsed show. Even when I was doing late night, I didn't have I would turn up, honestly, in the last 4 or 5 years of it, I'd turn up 15 minutes before and then we go. And then that was it. And, and I would look at some ideas but I think that's repetition of, I know what I do. Even so, you experiment within the parameters of what you do. Like, I know the robot is over there, the horse is over there. I know if I say fuck, they're going to get mad, but if I say asshole, they won't get that mad. And, it's like you build a little box that you can experiment within.
Yes.
And I think what would be difficult now in that environment, I mean, Lorne clearly knows how Saturday Night Live works. And I think if I were doing a show now, I'd be like, I don't know what the rules are now. I don't know the joke that I said last week might be annoying. Everything moves very quickly, and you can step over lines that are still, the paint is still fresh. That you're like, I didn't know that was a problem. Why is that a problem? And it has to be explained to you. And do you find that in the time you've been on the show that you have, I mean, presumably you've learned to speak the language of the show. You know how to get a sketch on the show. You know how to make a sketch work in the show. But do you think it's boxed you in any way creatively? Is it something that you'd like to experiment away from the show?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely boxed. It's weird to say this, and I'll probably have another point to it, but it's boxed my confidence in a little bit, because I so want to get something on the show. I want to be accepted by the show, and I want to thrive on the show. And I'm so in this world, and I'm there, 6 out of 7 days out of the week. And it's my singular focus when, we're filming. And so I'm like, if I'm not getting stuff on, then I'm like, I'm not funny. I'm not doing my job. And that has been the thing that then is weird when I go to another show and I'm so like, oh my God, I'm nervous. I haven't done like live shows like when I was doing Groundlings a lot. And so it's, but then you go and you do a show, or you just do an improv show, and you're like, oh my God, it's fine. And people are not judging me as harshly as I'm judging me, and even the show isn't judging me as harshly as I'm judging me. It's just suddenly I got this like standard, so there's that. And then also I know whatever I do next, which, I'd love to have a show that I, co-star in and co-write, and it's a character and it's a world and it's a character I get to live in for a while and explore more, would be like
what would that character be? A hairdresser maybe?
No, but I bet they'd have big hair.
I think, look, you already know how to hold the scissors. You're halfway there.
It's true. Yeah.
I think that the idea of working, because I used to like avoid playing Scottish people all the time. And I was like, but I'm Scottish, I might as well. Like if you get offered a part being Scottish, just go, all right. I presume that if you get offered a part playing someone from Kansas, that would be okay.
It would be totally okay. I mean, I love like Kansas, Missouri, where I was raised. I love the people. I get the people. I love Midwestern and all the different levels of it. So like that world, I'm in on that.
I was always surprised that when I went to the Midwest, like because I got to know America from the coasts in, so I knew New York and LA, that when I started going to America in the middle, that because I learned that you go, hey, how you doing? And people go, hey, how you doing? And that's it. But if you say, hey, how you doing in Kansas, people will tell you how they're doing.
They really
they will. I'm okay, but my sister had to have an operation. And you're like, oh my God, is she okay? Yeah. Well, she's doing okay now. And you find yourself in conversations.
Yes.
I worked with a great improviser from the Midwest who played the character of Mimi on the Drew Carey show, which was a show I was on in the 90s, Kathy Kenny, who's from Stevens Point, Wisconsin, which is about as Midwest as I can think of, as maybe nearly as much as Kansas. Yeah. And they're very funny people, but there's a real darkness to the show. I think there's a weird undercurrent to it that I love.
Yes. Oh, I totally feel that. I mean, so much of my stuff at Groundlings and even sometimes at SNL, like, a note I get is like, it's a little too dark, or, like play up the joy. You can play, at work, they've told me before, like you can play a loser, like, but you have to be loving your life as a loser. Like the audience, at least our audience here at SNL, does not want to worry about you. So like you are having fun, all of this information that's painting the specificity of your weird down and out life, like you need to be loving it. And I get that. For a while, I was like, but this was my life. Like, like even talking about like being in debt or something, like just things that happened throughout my childhood, or I was like, well, this was funny because this is how we dealt with it, or this is what my parents did to, and they're like, yeah, but a lot of people think like maybe that's something you should talk about in therapy. Just be careful.
What do you think that the sketch format doesn't allow for? Well, it can't really. If you're doing a sketch, you can't go hugely complex with a character if you've only got 3 or 4 minutes to do it, right?
And that's like the exact thing that producers tell hosts, especially hosts that are like seasoned dramatic actors who want to get into their character. And I get it because I love characters and I like to go a little deep. But you'll just get lost in it for 3 minutes. And I've never seen it serve someone very well to go too deep and take it too seriously. It's always about just like, yes, the voice you're doing is great. Like, we don't need to think about what they had for breakfast. Like, you're good. Do you have a favorite? I won't ask you names or anything, but do you have a favorite type of host? Is there a type of person that is easier to work with and you get more out of it than another? Yeah, so there's a couple. One of those being really amazing. I'll say, I should just say actors, but I like to say dramatic actors because it catches me off guard. Because when I remember my first season, I think it was my first season, Sterling K. Brown hosted, and he did a sketch where basically he was just at a dinner table, just saying Shrek is the best like DreamWorks movie or something. And someone else was like, no, I think it's How to Train Your Dragon. Mm-hmm. And there were jokes in there, but he was never going for the joke. He was just playing it as a man who earnestly believed this and had his moment to say it. And he never went for a joke or a silly face. Like anyone in the cast would have been like just going so goofy with it. And I was like, I left that table read being like, is he funnier than me? Like, is he funnier than all of us? And I see that a lot with really good actors. I'm like, you're just a good actor. And like, you're doing, I'm sure, what you learned in school, just playing the truth of the character, and it's fully working and the writing's good. So I love that. And then, I'm a big sports fan. So I love when athletes host because personally, I think the expectation should be super low. They're a fish out of water. This isn't what they do. So if they are just fine, it's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, he's a linebacker. It's like, we didn't expect him to be the best. But when they kill it, it's like, oh my God, like there's this hidden talent in there or something they always had that they got to explore. So if you're a big sports fan and you're from Kansas, it's not the greatest weekend you've ever had, was it? It wasn't the greatest weekend. I've had like so many great Chiefs years recently. Mm-hmm. A lifelong fan. So I am like grateful to a fault, grateful to that they went to the Super Bowl. The only thing that's hard as like what I consider to be like a sweet fan who has been through wins and losses and all sorts of different seasons. And I know what it feels like when like another team is reigning. It doesn't feel great. The only thing I don't like is just that there are some stories that are like, well, the Chiefs didn't show up. They didn't try. And I'm just like, no player out there who made it to the Super Bowl didn't try, Eagles included. I mean, Eagles tried so hard and they blew us out. Like, I just find some of these narratives so insulting. And actually, I was talking to someone recently. I was like, I fail all the time at work. Like I write sketches, 3 sketches a week usually, because I like want to have good numbers to maybe get one in. And usually I get 0 in. Like I fail and I lose. It's just that, and I think that's a loss because I didn't get it on, but I'm like, oh, I'm kind of protected because no one saw my loss live because it never even went. They didn't see me lose. And so I'm just like, they have to go lose in public. Like, but they try. Like, no one's not trying.
It is an odd thing, but I think around sports casting, especially when you think about it, it's not, you can't rehearse it. You know,
No.
so if you're, I feel like the people who are actually commenting and live on the game, I have a great deal of sympathy for that because you have to keep talking and you're
100%.
going to say a lot of bullshit that people are going to get mad at. But I think afterwards, the idea of, they didn't try, somebody analyzing the game saying they didn't try, it is a ludicrous idea that you would get up in the morning of the Super Bowl goal and go, all right, well, I'll go. But really, I'm more looking forward to going out later on in the day. I don't think anyone goes to it like that.
No. So thank you for letting me get that off my chest. I think that's the most trash talk you're going to get from me.
I'm glad you got it off your chest. And I'm glad. It is an interesting thing, though, but I think when pop culture, very famously with the Chiefs right now, pop culture and sports culture are intersecting at light speed. And I think people that normally don't pay any attention, the Super Bowl is always like this. When people that normally pay no attention to sport, suddenly it's the day where they're going to sit down and watch sports all day and have opinions about it. And I think the thing about sports, a little bit like performance, is that everybody's kind of an expert. You know, that you can say things like, wow, he didn't do that because of this. And no one can prove you 100% wrong. No one, if you said, Travis Kelce, he didn't try. He went, well, he did, but no one can prove you wrong and say he didn't. But he did. He tried.
Yeah.
He just
did.
But it's the same thing when people say that's not. I mean, I'm interested. When we talked right at the beginning, we talked about improv sports, that sports improv thing. And I was always fascinated by that because the idea that somebody can be more funny than somebody else seems an anathema to me. It doesn't seem possible to me. That because it's so subjective, there are some things that people laugh at. I'm like, I just don't get it. And I'm not funny. I get fucking Emmys and Peabodys and shit. I know I'm funny. I've made money. Yeah. So why do I not get that? And the reason I don't get it is because it's like all art. It's subjective.
Yeah.
And I mean, but sport, you kind of have to win.
Yes.
And I think
it's just so much more vulnerable, in my opinion. It's just like, there's just a winner and a loser, and you're putting it all out there. And like with what we're doing, it's like you're funny and maybe some people think you're not, but a lot of people think you're winning. Like even the most like subversive, like left of center stuff, you know, like.
But also the thing is as well that if you don't make people laugh, they get angry at you. The same as if your team doesn't win, they get angry. You know, it's like, and that's an interest. I've never understood that. Like, that guy doesn't make me funny. He's an asshole. Why is he an asshole? He just doesn't make you laugh. No, he's an asshole. That asshole doesn't make me laugh. And I think that there's a thing that somebody said to me when I started in late night. It always kind of haunted me, which is, he said, the first 2 weeks, maybe the first couple of months are going to be rough because they're going to have to forgive you for trying to make them laugh. And I was like, oh my God, that's a weird thing to hear. And do you go out on the stage now on a Saturday night, like when you go out? Because presumably the first time you perform the show, that's when we see it, right? Do you go out there now thinking, fuck it, I know I'm funny? Or is there still doubt?
I do think it's like, fuck it, I know I'm funny. And I think I'm funnier when I'm confident and having fun.
Definitely,
which is still hard to do if you are trying a completely new character or idea, which we are for the very first time. So to have all that freedom is like, and you have like, it's your baby and you have hopes and you have expectations for it. But you know, I am trying to lean a little bit more into just the fact, it's like the same way that you were like, if people have bought a ticket to see you, like probably there's not going to be one in the audience that hates you.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to believe that, like, I've been at the show for a while now. I still have the job, the audience. I'm just trying, it's even hard for me to say right now. I'm trying to be like, the audience does love you. And they might not love something you do, a sketch one night. They might not get this character, but it's not like they're like, oh, I hate her now. You know, I'm trying to just trust that the more I can be myself and have fun, I'm good.
I think that's right. I think the proof is that, like, if you've been on Saturday Night Live for 8 years, you're funny. It's
Right.
just, you just wouldn't have been on for that amount of time if you weren't. Enough people love you and think you're funny. But it's an interesting thing that I wonder sometimes, I don't think you have to be the funniest person to succeed in comedy. I think you have to be the person that people like. I think it's more about like than funny.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's about some weird empathy thing rather than just ha ha ha.
100%.
It's a weird thing. Who makes you laugh?
I mean, as far as who I work with at the table read, I sit next to Mikey Day, and I've known him for a long time now. And because we sit next to each other at the table read, it has felt like I am just working with one of my brothers. I have 2 brothers, and just like the familial sense there, it really makes me laugh. It's like at this point we can like mess around about anything. We have like a secondhand, our own kind of language. He makes me laugh a lot. Ego at the show, like her characters and her improv, she's so quick. And I've done some improv shows with her recently where it's like when she gets to be unscripted, it's amazing. And then my all-time favorite comedian is Jack Black.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting because Jack's very anarchic and wild and undisciplined. Do you know Jack?
I haven't. Well, I know him. I just haven't really ever gotten to like meet him, but he's sent me incredibly kind messages about my work. And like, I mean, he's my dream host. I was a Tenacious D fan. And I love what you just said about him. Like, when I'm totally like, when I feel myself like on Weekend Update, just free, I feel like I have a moment of like what Jack Black is able to conjure all the time. And I think that, and the way he does it and it works is so singular and like such a specific thing that.
And it's who he is as well. I've known Jack for 15 years. He still thinks I'm Irish. I'm not Irish. I'm not Irish. I've said to him, Jack, I'm not Irish. And every time he's like, how's the... I'm like, and I thought he was fucking with me, but he's not. He decided early on when we first met that I was Irish, and I've just stayed Irish. I got annoyed about it for a while, and now I would miss it if it wasn't there. What about stand-ups? Is there any stand-up that you that you would see, male or female, who you think that's, because it's a different kind of discipline to the character work?
For sure. I mean, lately, and stand-up's always been something that I love, but also intimidates me. It's like when I have to do a live show for the last few years, I've been a little bit like, well, I do characters and that doesn't feel as embraced in this arena. So, I've started trying to dabble in stand-up, but still very scared of it. I mean, what's been really cool is the last 2 seasons, Nate Bargatze has hosted.
Right.
And, I believe he's from Nashville or Tennessee, but it's like just close enough to where I'm from that like his observational humor feels just very spot on for the people and places that I grew up in. So, and I just love this simplicity, it's so not simple. But it's like there is a simplicity to just
Sure.
like what he's saying that feels so relatable to me. I've been loving that. I love Nikki Glazer, but I love what she did at the Golden Globes. Like that's such a thankless job, but I feel like she won it back.
She's an amazing woman. She used to do. I knew Nikki back in the day. I still know her, but I haven't seen her recently. And it's interesting because I used to say to her when she was doing. I used to do this radio show, and she would be on it a lot. And I used to say to her, "It's too much. You're freaking me out. I'm scared for you. You're telling me too much stuff." And she's like, "Don't worry about me. I'm fine." And she would, the bravery in which she would just unload. I'm like, I don't have that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
She's something. She's a force of nature. I'm delighted for her. But I still fear for her a little bit. I think there is a type of, and I think you know this from doing sketches, you get to build an invisible kind of protection shield. If you have a character, you got some protection. Even if that character is, this is who I am when I'm doing stand-up, or this is who I am when I'm doing a late night show, but it's not really me. I don't really behave like this. But I think some stand-ups, that's who they are. You know, it's just, they get up and start talking in a machine that makes their mouth louder, and that's it. I couldn't.
Even I don't go searching for comments, but sometimes just someone will actually tag your specific name and a hateful comment about you. And so you can't kind of miss it. And I've seen one come up a few times that's like, oh, at Heidi Gardner, I hate her voice. I hate her voice. I hate her voice. And I think about that as like, well, that is who I am. I genuinely can't change that. And I do get to hide behind that sometimes in a character, but it still comes out. And thinking about being if I was just doing this all the time, I would get that a lot more. It's scary.
Yeah, I think though that the thing really, I feel this every time. I'm really speaking to myself. You can't look at the comments. You mustn't. You mustn't look at the comments because you don't know where anybody's coming from. Somebody can have a horrible life and a horrible thing, and they just want to get some hate out. And I get that. I understand it, but I don't need to let it take me down.
No.
So,
the only time I've responded to a couple where I'm specifically called out, they're sports related, and it's someone teaching me. It's a man teaching me about sports or telling me like, it's football or something. And it's me like just sarcastically being like, oh, thank you for teaching me or so. That's like the most I'll do. But for some reason, I feel compelled to do it. But then the person always writes me back and is like, oh, I didn't realize you'd write back. I'm a huge fan. And I'm like, I thought you were being so mean to me. And then I start to see behind the curtain and the computer, and I'm like, I get it. I get what this all is.
It's just about anonymity. But listen, it's been lovely to talk to you. I'm so delighted to finally kind of meet you in this odd digital post-COVID way. But I wish you. I am a big fan of what you do, and I wish you continued luck. I had no idea you were such a talented hairdresser. And that just adds to your mystique as far as I'm concerned. Because I am impressed with that artisanal skill.
Well, we could probably someday open a salon, even if we were just open for a month.
Don't even say it as a joke. Don't even say it as a joke. You're like, that's my dream.
Stars with shears or something. It's like our way.
That would be out. Come on in. We'll tell you about our show business lives and give you a great do.
Yeah.
All right. It's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for being here, and continued success on that TV show that you do.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Heidi.